Welcome to the Visible and Unstoppable podcast. I am your host, Louise Kirk, and I support women to be seen, sell, and succeed. And today I have a very special guest. She is a personal brand and messaging specialist. It is Melissa Maughn. Thank you for coming, Melissa. Would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is, like you said, Melissa Maughn. I'm a personal brand and messaging strategist. And so I help my clients with getting clarity in building their personal brand, what their message is, how to uniquely position themselves in the marketplace, in their industry, so that they can get to their next level of business and just fulfill the desire and the vision that they see for themselves.
Love it. And when you say uniquely position themselves,
Mhm.
what I guess, what strategies would you suggest in terms of being that unique person in their own industry?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I feel the things that we often take for granted are usually the things that we should actually be talking about. Sometimes we think that what we're doing is, I hear this a lot. It's like, oh, that's so easy for me. And so people disregard the easy because it's easy for them, not realizing that it's super complicated for someone else. So that's one of the things that people say. The other thing that people don't realize is their story and their experience. That alone, knowing who you are and the experience that you've had, the things that you value, the things that you believe, all of these go into creating your personal brand because no one has your story, no one has your experience, and no one has your perspective. And that's really key. The key to personal branding is perspective. It is knowing what it is that you are here to do. What is your calling? What is your mission? What is your vision? And who is your solution for? Those are definitely the key things that people should consider when understanding how they're going to uniquely position themselves. Because as we know, there are thousands of strategists, there's thousands of life coaches and marketers and all of these things, but there's only one you. It sounds cliche, but sometimes cliches are cliches for a reason. Um, and so, yeah, I think that it's really important to understand your story and your experience because it shapes the approach of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And that's what people are going to connect to. They're going to connect to you and what you value and what you believe and where you're coming from and the thing that you overcame and now you want to help people overcome in their lives and bring them through that transformation.
Absolutely. And so you touched on a few things, that story, which is so, so important. But also around really understanding like your why, which is often usually kind of connected, I find, especially in the coaching space, to they've gone through an
Yeah.
experience and that becomes their why to help other people and becomes a part of their
Yeah.
story. When you're talking about identifying your own personal story, how do you help clients to really nail down like what their story is, but also to be able to have that confidence to say, this is my story?
Well, when I work with clients, I ask an array of questions. I really ask a lot of questions because I want to get to the heart really of where it is that they're coming from and like you said, what led them to do what they do. Especially like you said in coaching, in the coaching space. Usually, in marketing we say that your ideal client is usually the old version of you, right? Is the person that you wish you had in a given at that time. And so you learned how to overcome, you went through the hard thing and you achieved it. And now you want to help other women come through, their wherever they're stuck and help them to overcome. So yeah, that's why so that's why story and understanding what their story is important and how I get to understand what their story is really through those strategic questions. Um And often, we're having discussion and then they'll say something. And thankfully, I record all my sessions because I think we've all done this where we've said something and we're like, wait, I love exactly how I said that. Wait, what did I say? Like, write it down quick, So it's good to like go back because you can see, oh, maybe that was the moment or that was the point that really led me to do what I do. Especially when you've been in business for a few years, sometimes, you know, some of those fine details, you don't really remember. They're not at the forefront of your mind. So it's great to work with experts who are going to really bring that out of you again and remember, like you said, the why of why you even started in the first place. Because sometimes, and something I believe strongly in is, sometimes we get caught up in comparing ourselves to other people, especially in our industry, or people that we admire even. Sometimes we get caught in comparing or thinking, oh, maybe I should do a little bit of what they're doing, and then your message kind of get lost because then, like you said, you forget what your initial why was and who you're here to help and what you're here to do. So yeah, I think it's really key to understand that also not everything in your story needs to be shared. And that's something else that I just help clients with. It's like, what are the key points of your story that was the whole point in the first place of what was the solution? What does that look like? And what did that feel like? And how we can communicate that to your audience.
Yeah, I love that you said not everything, because I think sometimes for
Yeah.
some of my clients, that fear of telling their story is like, oh, they don't want to share like every intimate little bit. And you're like, but you don't have to share everything, and not everything is
Yeah,
relevant. But also, you made a really good
exactly.
point, which is something that I feel like was definitely relevant in my journey, but I know in so many of my listeners' journeys of that comparison, where you start out,
Mm,
especially, I speak from experience as in more terms of coaching, but, you're like, you have this purpose and the mission at the beginning, and all of a sudden you realize you also have to make money. Otherwise, you don't have a business and you still got bills to pay.
yeah.
And you start looking at,
Yeah.
okay, who are all these other people? What advice are they giving? And every time I went through a different business coach who'd give me different advice, sometimes I'd be absorbing too much of what they were telling me I should be doing rather than staying true
Yeah.
to, well, what did I set out to do in the first place? Or looking at all the other
Yeah.
women who are achieving all these great things and going, "Oh, but I'm not like that, so I won't make it." Or I have to
Mm,
be more like that, but that's not really me. But if I want to do what she's doing, I have to be, the boss babe or the manifester or the reality is I'm, a mum with two small kids. I'm not out there journeying around the world or, having this glamorous lifestyle. And so I love
mm,
that, you were talking about really coming back to like your story and your purpose to start
yeah.
almost pushing away all of those other influences.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's like a big, I mean, that's one of my messages is about creating a compromise-free brand, I talk about that a lot because it's just going to show that you don't have to compromise who you are to make it, because there are people out there who need to hear your message in the way that you say it and that you deliver it. And no, it's not going to be for everyone, but for the people who it's for, it's going to make such an incredible impact.
100%. And so as we're talking
Mm.
about the power of stories, would you share us, great language today. Would you share with us your story as to how you found yourself as a brand strategist?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So my story starts many years ago, and in 2011, actually, when my husband started doing music. He's a musician, And I was his girlfriend at the time, and being a good girlfriend, I thought, "Oh, I'll help him." And so I started, and I wasn't I'm not a singer or anything like that, but I figured, well, I can help him with his marketing, whatever, that could look like. And so I started, learning about videography, photography. I bought a DSLR camera. I learned how to use it. I learned all the fancy terms. Um, and in college, I had taken some courses on how to make flyers and brochures and things like that. So I implemented those skills, and then I started helping him with his social media. And so whilst I was helping him, and this is over years of helping him and starting and stopping, I really started doing it a bit more. And a friend of mine, one of my best friends, she was actually starting her social media business. And she told me, she's like, "Oh, you're really good at it. Like, why don't you start your business?" And so I thought, okay. And I had never considered starting a business. I didn't feel like I was very entrepreneurial. I always kind of put that on my husband. He's very entrepreneurial. Um, and so I thought, okay, yeah, why not? If I can help my husband, I'm sure I can help other people. And so that's how it started. And then I started as a social media manager, but then I realized working with clients how they didn't really know who their ideal client was really. They kind of knew what they were offering, but they didn't really know who their ideal client was, and they didn't really have a specific like direction and mission and vision. And so through that, I realized from doing it for myself as well when I started my business that if you don't have that good foundation, even if you've been in business for a while, if you don't have that good foundation, it's kind of like messy, shaky ground. And so I decided to focus more on brand strategy in particular because it's so key. It's so key, and you can help people at any stage of business too, even people who are very experienced, who've been in business for a long time, especially if they're going through a transition, they're looking to scale their business or do more speaking, things like that. And so that's kind of how I put my focus there. And I worked at branding agencies. I worked at for a branding agency in New York, one of the biggest ones in New York. I worked at marketing agencies too. So just seeing how not only for people, but we used to do real estate branding, like what does that look like? And learning all those things and taking all those elements to help understand what it is and how to build a really solid strategy for people was key. And just seeing that even when it's a building, storytelling is so important. It's very important to know what the story is and to share that with people because that's what's going to make the connections.
Absolutely. And what would you say have been the biggest challenges you faced in building your business?
Ooh, I think it's pretty common for a lot of people, and you touched on it before when you were sharing too. It's like thinking that for me it was just feeling insecure. Like I said, when I started my business, I never really had a desire to be a business owner. So I had a lot of insecurities because I didn't think, like I said, I even compare myself to my husband a lot, and I saw him as someone who has a lot of talent and could do this and that. And I never really thought I had many gifts and many talents. And so just the insecurity of, imposter syndrome and thinking, oh, can I really help people? Like, is it going to be like, am I going to be any good? um it kind of went from kind of one extreme to the next, in the sense that I went from being really insecure to making my whole identity about my business, and that's not good either. Because then your self-esteem is attached to the outcomes of your business, and as we know, it's very up and down. So there was You can't have a consistent mind when you're thinking that your value is also going up and down, which is not true.
100%. I do find that, and again, like in the past, in the earlier stages of my business, and I find that as well with like a lot of the women I speak to is again, they enter into this world of like, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to help all these people. And then they're not like the reality is in the first few years of business, you're not making a lot of money because
Yeah.
you're, especially if you're a coach, because you're also learning like how to actually
Yeah.
build, like you said, a brand, how to market yourself, how to sell, and how to then deliver all at the same time. And most people, especially coaches, don't come from a business background. And so when you're
Yeah.
tying your worth to how much you're earning, then those first few years are horrendous because the reality is,
Yeah.
despite what we see on social media, it's very, very
Mhm.
unlikely. And, for this
Yeah.
overnight success. And typically, when we see what overnight success is, they've actually been working for a long time in the background. It just happens to be that one
Yeah.
thing that helped them propel really quickly. And so you only see that overnight
Yeah.
success. You don't see all the work they've done before. Staying on the topic
Exactly.
of personal branding, what top tips? I know you've already covered a few things. Moving into 2026, looking at the new year ahead, what top tips could you give the listeners on their own personal branding?
Yeah, I think that, it's just people are gonna realize how important actually personal branding is. And I think that people are seeing it now more and more, with, all the rise of AI and all the, things that we've endured over these hard things that we've endured over these last few years. Definitely, being in community, doing more in-person things is on the rise. And so we have to understand too that your personal brand isn't just online, it's also offline in the conversations and the things that you have with people. Because it's about your reputation, right? What people think and feel about you, what people remember about you. And I think it's Maya Angelou that said, right? I think it was her that said, people won't remember exactly what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And that is a brand. So coming into this new year in 2026, definitely people are going to be have to be more intentional with what they're putting out there, what they're saying, what they're doing. People want to see real, raw, more authentic. So that's even going to play in video content, not the super duper polish, but people want to connect with people they can trust, and they want to see that not everything is perfect, and that flaws are flaws are flaws for everyone. Everyone also can get stuck in that messy middle, figuring out, going to the next level, especially where things are going to be new and different. So definitely those things, storytelling is going to be, like we're talking about, even more important as well, knowing what your story is and how that builds connection with your audience, and how it builds in trusting as well, as if people are going to trust you or not. So those are some of the key things I think that we're going to be seeing in terms of building a personal brand in 2026 is, authentic, raw, more real, and connection, and doing more connecting offline as well.
Which is, in some ways, I feel almost opposite to what we've been exposed to, where we've had all these, perfectly curated Instagram reels where everyone's looking beautiful and life is magical and everything goes so well and isn't my
Yeah.
life fantastic, to moving into more of
Hmm.
that authenticity. I've seen a
Yeah.
lot lately with this, the rise of AI and like some amazing things that
Hmm.
have come from it. But also, I've seen a lot of people using AI to create or construct perhaps a brand or an image of their life that probably isn't true. You know, you see women being photoshopped
Yeah.
into jet planes and boats and whatever it
Yeah.
is to create this
Yeah.
sense that they live this life that they don't.
Mm.
What kind of role do you feel AI is bringing to personal branding, whether it's good or bad?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a place for certain things, right? Like there are some great AI tools that are gonna help you with building your brand and putting it out there in some way. However, I'm seeing a lot, and probably you've been seeing it too, like the AI me, like, you have your AI virtual, like video, like there's videos where people are essentially it's all AI, but you've put some pictures in so it can recreate you. And now it can do all the work for you. And like you said, like putting you in like circumstances which are just completely far from where what the reality is. And so I think that people are going to dip their toe into that because there's going to be some marketers that are going to say it's going to make your life easier to do this. But I think that people are going to quickly just realize that, but that's not me. So if people are going to connect to me, they have to see the real me. They have to see how I really sound with all the ums and knows and all those things, and that we're not, perfect. We're not, it's just, I mean, I want to work with someone who I know has experienced the downs like I do, and not just the perfect life essentially. Because that's not it's just not sustainable and it's not relatable. And people want to connect with people and humans and humanity. And I feel that when we use these tools a bit too much to live our life for us, essentially, we lose that humanity, we lose that connection. And I really feel that we were made and created for community, and that we help each other in all different kinds of ways with the skills and the gifts and the things that we have to share. And so I feel like AI can try to kind of take that away in some ways, but I feel like people might go for it at the beginning and then be like, you know what, it's gonna end up being more work than just grabbing your phone and just talking. It's like instead of like, oh, like I'm a prompt engineer now, like I know all the prompts, like for me, I don't see it like lasting very, very long. But people will try it. I know people are gonna try it, but they're gonna see the difference, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's probably my bias, right? Because there'll be people out there who are like, "No, I love it. I love all the AI and I love doing this and I love watching." I think for me on a personal level, because I'm all about that connection as well. And so when I see lots of people who are so AI generated, and I know it's not them, right? I've seen
Yeah.
their other photos. For me, it automatically creates this distrust in my brain where I'm like, but that's not
Yeah.
you, even though I know what you do is really good, even though
Yeah.
your message is really good, but it's almost as if you are saying to the world, I'm not good enough, and so I'm going to create someone who looks nothing like me, or a very younger version, more toned version, more, better version of me
That part.
to present to the world instead of being me. And I think as a coach and someone who, if I'm looking predominantly at other people who are coaches specifically, the message that they're almost unknowingly giving is that I don't think I'm good enough as I am.
Yeah.
And then I'd wonder, like, well, would you think I'm good enough as I am as a client?
Mm.
But that's perhaps my perspective on working with people who highly use AI instead of being um, connected. I mean, there are also those benefits. I've seen AI used for creating beautiful photos where it is still a true reflection of that person and they're not putting themselves on
Yeah.
boats and things. So, and AI, of course, as we know, is so
Yeah.
much broader than just imaging. But in terms of our branding, like I think the image is so
Yeah.
important. When
Yeah.
you a lot of my listeners are women who are in business. And so, what message would you like to leave the listeners with?
So, like my main message is kind of, it's just connected to everything we've been talking about now. But my main message really is who you are is more important than what you do, because who you are shapes the approach of what you do. So I think that this is really key, and it's linked to our identity, right? And just knowing our identity, knowing who we're becoming, and embracing those things, and knowing that those are only just going to help us in our business if we just have an open heart to share, that transition and that transformation that we're going through, and just be open and, like we're saying this whole time, tell our story. I want people to know that it does matter. There are people out there who need to hear it. And something that I say is that, your life and your story is a lesson for you, but it's life to somebody else. Your story is a lesson for you, but it's life for someone else. So I think that that's really important for people to remember that. Yes, not all the details need to be spilled, especially if your wound is still a wound and not a scar. If it's something you're still dealing with, if it's something you haven't fully overcome, then yeah, please keep that to yourself. But if it's a scar, if it's something that you're overcome and now it's like an analogy I usually say is, you know, and maybe this isn't the best analogy maybe, but it kind of makes it a bit clear that, someone who is recovering, like a recovering alcoholic can't go into a bar, but someone who is can, they know they're not going to be guided or tricked into doing something they're not comfortable to do. And that goes back to living and leading compromise free. So making those decisions and those choices based on what you value and what you believe, and what you know is true, and walking forward in that.
Beautiful. And I
Mhm.
love how you really highlight that you might not be fully through and fully healed what you've gone through, even if you're supporting
Yeah.
other people to go through it. Because I do find
Mm.
a lot of coaches, they have this perception that they must be, fully healed or fully amazing and living their best life before they can help other
Yeah.
people, which is also unrealistic because it's the
Yeah.
forever journey of healing and personal development. And you'll think you're over something and something else comes up, and it is
Yeah.
also important to know that sometimes there's this pressure online to show up so vulnerable and so real and raw, but that actually, for a person who still has got that wound open and not fully healed, actually showing up and putting yourself out there with the fear of judgment, or sometimes people, of course, do judge and do comment,
Mm.
is not putting yourself in the best position in terms of your healing, but also in terms of you being able to be confident to show up and actually share your
Yeah.
story. And so it was a great reminder to say, you don't have to share everything, and you don't have to be fully healed before you show up and before you can help other
Yeah.
people. So, Melissa,
Exactly.
if the listeners want to find you, where can we find you?
So I like to keep things as simple as possible. So basically everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, you can find me at the Melissa Maughn. And you can even look at my website. It's, guess what it is? themelissamaughn.com. So just put that in. You'll find me somewhere. If you Google that, you'll find me somewhere.
Yeah. I'll link them everywhere in the notes for people to go and find you to make it super easy. And I believe that for the listeners too, you have a beautiful gift, the Idea Decoder. Could you tell us more about this wonderful gift?
Oh, yes. So I I've been speaking to a lot of people who kind of like what we're talking about now, have some decisions to make and they're not sure which direction they want to go to. And they have a few ideas on their heart that they want to do, but they're not really settled on one. So the idea decoder is a simple system. It will take you about 10 minutes to write down those ideas and find out which one really is the one that you should move forward with. And so it's just a simple system that will work, that will just show you and point you in the direction and the next step that you should be going in.
Beautiful. And again, I will link that in the description for anyone who wants to grab the idea decoder. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for coming on today on the Visible and Unstoppable podcast. And I hope to
Thank you
speak
so
to you
much for having
soon.
me.
You're welcome.